someone's playing the trombone and the piano and the violin, but it makes a symphony. Well, this is about what you're to see. Like Bitcoin is a global symphony of economic activity. It is aligning disinterested counterparties, and it's putting everybody on the same project.
Yep.
And we're building a global superstructure, right?
Welcome back to another episode of the Keys to the Commonwealth podcast. Landry here, excited for a topic that I have been diving deep into for the last 2.5 years, and I feel like we are at the dawn. We're kind of past the dawn. We're now in the sunrise era of what I would call the crypto exchange, as everything in this world is about to kind of, I think, start changing in a big way in regards to blockchain technology and so forth. But I want to kind of hit an overview of a lot of what's happening right now with that. This in no way by any means is financial advice today. So let me at least tell you that. But excited to have my new friend Jonathan Kellogg on to the podcast to talk all things crypto today. So, Jonathan, appreciate you coming on the podcast here.
Landry, I'm happy to be here, man. This is my first, as I was telling you a minute ago, when we just met, actually, a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah.
For the first time. We have some mutual friends, but this is my first rodeo, so...
Perfect. We'll just put that mic up a little closer to the mic, and you'll be all set to go.
All right.
So, yeah, how'd you get into... I've got your name from several people on the socials and stuff like that as far as that goes, and so kind of where's your journey start and kind of this idea of crypto and so forth, especially probably more so Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's been a long journey. So grew up in Wilmore, Kentucky, just down the road here, about 20 minutes drive south of here. Little university there, Asbury University. I don't know where all your listenership is from.
Mostly Kentucky, but I was just there for the 4th parade for sure.
Perfect. Yeah, so I grew up in Wilmore, Christian family, small little town there. My dad was a missionary kid in Kenya. My mom was a nurse, and so those are kind of the two rivers that joined, and then here I am. And then went to the University of Kentucky, did engineering, and there's kind of a precursor story here. So I don't know where the best point is to jump in, other than to say there were some events that happened in my personal life growing up that made me aware that the financial system, as it had been architected, now I understand, in 1971, when we fully left the gold standard and this whole fiat
kind of went
experiment.
To more fiat. Petrodollar. Petrodollar is one of those terms I think that's associated with that sometimes. After we moved away from the gold standard, for those that may or may not know, type of thing, in a quick hierarchy.
Yeah, and just for everyone's awareness here, and I've been learning along the way, right? I was born in '93.
Okay.
So we were kind of born into the middle of this fiat experiment that really got going in earnest in 1971 when we fully abandoned the gold standard. And so we were born kind of almost for me, I was 20 years into this thing. This thing was already rolling, right?
Yeah.
And so then you're coming up, the internet's really taken off. You get into the 2000s. It's, you see the .com telecom bust. I was 8 years old when that happened. And then you see September 11th, horrible tragedy. But then you see the connection between, this centralized monetary system, and you're kind of like, well, maybe this wasn't so great for people overseas, and maybe that led to some of this. And then you fast forward into 2008, and you see the subprime mortgage crisis, and so you see these,
which is when I graduated college, which was a great time to come out of college when the
so you're
just the crash of
so I'm 32. How old?
39.
39. So you got 7 years on me.
Yeah.
And so I'm in high school, kind of experiencing these things and watching my own family navigate this. And then, as kind of another backdrop for me, I had a great grandfather that had owned a mall property out west and created a trust in our family. So I'm not a trust fund baby per se, but I've seen how a high quality property can endow a family or endow an institution. And so I always recognize man, if you could find scarce, desirable property, this can be really good for people.
And a lot of this podcast started from the property side of things. As I was personally learning a lot of this stuff and realizing, as you would probably argue at as well, that the stuff that they never would teach you in school, really type of scenario, as far as how money works, how the rules of finance that are out there to be utilized, your advantage, it's never really truly taught to us. That the YouTube sensation that is we have now in endless information at our fingertips has kind of been the catalyst for there's all these avenues and different ways we can do things than we were ever really thought or taught type of scenario growing up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, it was just, I was always incredibly curious to see, is there a better way? I was like looking for something, right? And I mean, I was mowing grass when I was like 10 years old, saving up for my first car and saving it in dollars, right? And I bought my first car in dollars, and, I was very, obviously native to that. But, especially in 2008, when I watched that, and I watched what happened to my grandparents, they had like a, real estate kind of thing going in northern Indiana, and it really impacted them negatively. I mean, they pretty much lost their enterprise up there because they were a little too over leveraged, and it just didn't go well for them. And,
Is that during the 08, 09?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And so like what I'm trying to say is my background in my young life was actually, I would use the word like traumatizing. Like I was very anxious a lot around financial issues because it was really impacting my family negatively, caused hardship for my parents, just various things. And they're together, things work out. The Lord's like redeemed a lot of things, but I'm trying to say I had a lot of like additional baggage that maybe not even the average person would have experienced. It was pretty intense for me. And so I was really hungry and looking for a solution. And I wanted to have a way to support my family and be a good steward of the resources that God's given me. And so I got really curious about investing and all that. And, in middle school, my dad, he showed me a compound interest table. And if you've ever looked at those, right, like the compound interest formula, it's principal, what you start with, multiplied times 1 plus your interest rate. So let's say it's 10%. So if you start with $10,000 times 110%, and then you raise it to the compounding periods, right? And that could be how many years, right? So if you compound $10,000 over 40 years, it adds up to an astronomical amount of money. And so the question is, how can I achieve a high rate of return over a long period of time? And that's a challenging thing to do. And so you start with your basic money market, right? Your cash in your bank account, but that's going to yield you just a couple percentage points. And inflation's running 7, 8, 9, 10%, depending on where you look, right? And it varies by year.
I think that's the biggest thing, to like when you start showing people there's the deflationary aspect of especially the U.S. dollar from like, when our parents were young kids to where they are now type of scenario. I mean, it's crazy. It's not that like things are that much more expensive. It's just that the dollar is not worth near as much as what it used to be. It's pennies on the dollar now in that aspect. So.
Yeah, and there's more inflation in the things that people really want. So the inflation you get in the scarce, desirable assets like housing itself, unfortunately, you're seeing inflation there that's even higher than your basic toilet paper, your basic commodities, right? Like even you actually get amplified inflation in the really desirable things. And so yeah, man, I was troubled by growing up in this, and I was thinking, how am I going to make it? And so part of the reason that, career-wise, I chose engineering was like, well, it's a competitive field. It's something I'm going to have to work really hard for, but if I can get a license, that's going to protect my earnings to some level, because, you don't want to have just anybody design the bridge for you. If I can create a moat around my income stream, that would be good. And then, as I got into business school, I learned the importance of moats and things more when I was studying Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger value investing. But yeah, to get onto the, the Bitcoin subject specifically, to take you guys back, right? It's 2011. I've graduated high school from West Jessamine High School, just down the road here, and went into the University of Kentucky pursuing civil engineering. And I wanted to use that to do mission work and to just make the world a better place and be able to provide for my family. And so I had all these other reasons I was doing engineering. But one day, I think this was my freshman year of university, I'm in the engineering library on campus in Anderson, and I am on my desk, my laptop, my Apple MacBook Pro. And at the time, my home screen on my browser was Yahoo News, so very common back then. Now it's like Google, right? But back then it was Yahoo, and if you're familiar with Yahoo, right, you've got like these little pop culture articles and things that pop up. And one of these days, there was an article that popped up about this magic internet money called Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And I read a little bit. And at the time, I was obsessed with Tesla and the rise of Elon Musk and all this stuff. And so I thought, man, if I had any extra money, I would buy a little bit of Tesla. I would buy some of this Bitcoin stuff and maybe a few other little things. but I didn't have any extra money. So I kind of...
Right. That was the problem. That I was the same way back then. I was like, man, I wish I could put some money into this thing at that point.
Yeah. And I have a vague memory. I don't know if I really did this or if it's just a vague memory. But, you know, back then, like Mt. Gox was like one of the original exchanges, and, you know, people would get on and buy this. I can't remember. It's somewhere in Asia where it ran out of Japan or Hong Kong. I don't know.
There's a documentary on its crash. You can watch this, that, or the other. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, a lot of people got rugged on that one. So if I had, who knows, if I had bought anything on Mt. Gox, it probably wouldn't have worked out great anyway. So basically, you know, this was like the first time I heard about it, and I just thought it was interesting, right? And then, you know, engineering's busy, right? And I was working. I was
because I mean, I think the interest part where people started was like, I mean, there was really smart minds either talking about it, kind of behind it type of scenario of talking about how it was very, you know, there was very smart people talking highly about it as far as the technology, this, that, or the other. So it wasn't like it was this just, who knows what this is, like, let's just throw some money and see what happens. There was more of this is going to change almost, you know, the world in some ways as far as the technology itself. And I think that's where people have a misunderstanding from the blockchain in that self, that it'll start taking over everything. And honestly, in a lot of ways, I could argue should, you know, like PVA transactions, and like have that time, you know, put on a blockchain as a transaction to say, this is my property based upon this, and you can't duplicate that type of scenario or take it away from me or try to change that or alter that.
Correct.
This, that, or the other. You could talk about anything, driver's licenses, you could do whatever you want type of scenario. So in some ways, the technology, I think, and people need to understand, is very transformative and will and should be leveraged in a lot of ways because of how safe it is in many ways to use. But then we usually only hear the fear-mongering kind of part of it a lot of times, as far as you can kind of be stupid with things too.
Yeah, I mean, you know, go back, right? Read your history on invention of different things, like your light bulb, right? We use every day. Edison went through 10,000 iterations of that before he got it to work once. And if you look at the history of electricity, there's old articles, like little comic strips of people trying out electricity. You know, like people were fear-mongering electricity back in the day, you know, with, I mean, you'd have someone tethered to a pole being electrocuted, and it was like a very crude, almost grotesque representation of electricity gone awry. And is that inaccurate? No. Like if you use electricity the wrong way, you're going to get fried.
And there was originally the way they laid out electricity just directly into houses was very controversial, as how they kind of did it originally too. And they eventually went to more of those units around around your city, this, that, or the other. So, I mean, it took a while to get there to where we're at with that today.
Correct. And it still scales. And, you know, you've seen the charts out there of like, how long did it take for most of the country to have refrigerators? How long to have phones? How long? And you see like this sloping thing, and they compress over time. And what's fascinating is Bitcoin is actually growing faster than the internet itself proliferated.
Okay.
So, because again, these S curves, right? They kind of compress, and so we're, you know, if you read Ray Kurzweil and the singularity is near and all these things, you see this increasing acceleration. It's torque in the innovation curve, to where we are just moving faster and faster towards this wild future. And you have AI, and you have all these other things we could talk about, but I am passionate about talking about Bitcoin for so many reasons that maybe we could do a few of these, because like it's such a deep rabbit hole. There's so much to it. Obviously there's other coins and things out there we could talk about. But you know, there is a social movement happening in Bitcoin specifically that is unique. It is special. The origination, the story of how Bitcoin was invented, it's remarkable. I literally bought a book on Amazon. It's called The Book of Satoshi. You can go back and read all of his emails that he was sending on the newsletter, the crypto mailing list, right?
Satoshi, for those who don't know, was the author of Bitcoin type of scenario in its creation. You can't create any more of it. For those who don't know out there, there's a similar concept as far as what I'm usually more so on, which is XRP Ripple type of scenario. But also, there's I don't know if you've ever heard a lot of the rumors that Satoshi was one of the creators with XRP as well.
Yeah, this is not
type of thing.
Not
I don't
true.
know. I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, I guess
that's not real. That's not fact by any means. But obviously, it's a large. So who knows out there? There's a lot of, and that's the part I get. People are kind of like, well, there's a lot of mysterious aspects behind all this type of scenario. So like, I'm afraid to trust this type of stuff. And that's what I get that. And you would probably say you get that too. But it's like the technology itself is what I always try to point people back to as far as what that part, like at the beginning of this conversation, you just can't once you really understand it and how safe and secure in many ways it is, and how the use case for it, and to expound upon that just slightly before we kind of get more back into Bitcoin. Like, so today we're sitting here, it's July 14th. Today is what's the dawn of ISO 20022, which is the new international standards operating code for how the banks in America are now going to switch over to this code. This new, it's kind of like going from a dumb flip phone texting message system between banking transactions around the world to more of a modern version of it just being a lot more faster paced, more data and information that can be transacted within those. Because you look at your debit or credit card, there's very minimal information that usually pops up there. And to finish that aspect, now the rules and standards for international banking kind of scenario where they have these days, before today, it was technically where it was faster to go fly cash to London, England, than it was to actually send cash to London, England type of scenario. And so a lot of the blockchain technology from stable coins and this, that, or the other are actually going to be able to be utilized now from a banking transactional standpoint in that way. So it's kind of a monumental day. And we were kind of talking a little bit before this that I would kind of almost argue for a lot of people think like, oh, it's sometimes a ship sail type of scenario, that I was like, we would probably both argue, no, like maybe we're past the dawn and we're now in kind of the sunrise scenario of crypto and technology and so like that. So it's still extremely early all in this whole thing. So I want to make sure people understand that too, that the sun's just now peaking and rising in the east type of scenario, I think, in this whole thing. So I think it's going to become more and more of a topic of conversation people are going to be constantly familiar with. I think AI kind of overtook it for a bit as far as the topic of conversation in some ways with its explosion a few years ago. Yeah. But so back to Bitcoin then in that sense, as far as just learning about it and diving into that. So obviously, we know Satoshi, even though we don't know who he is, kind of created it, and there, you can't really create any more of it. Just like a few coins like XRP, et cetera, you can't create more of.
And even that actually is a whole philosophical point of discussion, right? I mean, think of the wheel. Okay, something as basic as that, or the discovery of fire. These are referenced a lot, but there's other. You could apply this to so many inventions. Lost to time. Who invented X, Y, and Z? I mean, who invented all this widget and that? I mean,
the internet.
Most of the things, yeah. Who invented the internet? I mean, Al Gore. Like, is that still a joke?
Right. I think so. Yeah.
But like, who invented these things? And most of the tools you use in your life, you're not looking at it and thinking, man, I really want to use this because I knew the guy, or it was my distant relative, or I mean, goodness, my last name's Kellogg. I eat cereal, but it's not because my last name's Kellogg. It's because it works for me. It digests well and it gives me a quick, carbohydrate. But I'm not advocating for cereal. I know. Anyway, but the point is we use things for their utility. Why does this make my life better? Why would I choose to adopt this over the old? You saw this with the old mail carriers, and then it went to fax, and then it went to email. Well, it's all about efficiency of moving bits of information around in the case of mail. And, the unique thing that Bitcoin unlocked for the world, and truly, even for me, I mean, I've been around this, again, I heard about it in 2011, learned a little bit, forgot about it. There's a whole story of how I got back involved in 2017. I mean, this would take several hours to go through my whole story and all and everything I've learned about Bitcoin in the last 8-9 years. I mean, I've been like singularly focused on this. So yes, I'm doing engineering.
Because you just got back from one of the big Bitcoin Con type of things, right? Is that what it's called? Bitcoin Con? I don't know.
It's called the Bitcoin Conference.
And
it's been going for a number of years now. I went to my first one in 2023, I guess it was, in Miami, and then last year I went to the Bitcoin Conference.
Last year, I think Trump there. I think at that one, or was that a different
that was
one?
In 2024 in Nashville. Yep. And then this year was in Vegas. Okay. And next year will also be in Vegas again.
Okay.
And so, you're having, respectable, you're having high-ranking political figures appear at these different events now, which, again, it's a lot of fanfare. But for me, I don't go for any of those reasons. Sure. I go because this technology will change the world in so many fundamental ways I can barely even elucidate. Like it would take a while because,
and that'll probably have to be our part 2 type of scenario. In some ways, as this kind of grows, and to speak to the political thing, because I'm just talking about where we sit right now in this like sunrise aspect is, you know, a lot of people are expecting, and there's a lot going through the House and Senate type of stuff as far as potential bill passing to kind of, I guess, create the framework, especially for the financial district of the America, which, for those who don't know, we're really behind the 8 ball in some respects when it comes to that, as many countries have already passed a lot of the structure in regards to crypto use in that scenario. So we expect, I mean, are you kind of in the belief that probably at some point this year or within the next 12 months that kind of gets passed in some kind of framework aspect?
Oh, like the clarity initiative. I've seen that kind of moving around on the socials. You know,
we'll see.
Okay, guys. So to level set too, right? It's hard to move the mind because the zeitgeist in the American mind is like, hey, America is the world's superpower. We define what all these, you know, the global world order, you know, and obviously you have China rising and all this stuff, right? But Bitcoin is a supra-sovereign monetary technology, meaning this is not some game of like which country can figure out how to come up with the right ways to accelerate Bitcoin and add something. It's actually a competition between nation states to adopt and incorporate. Sure. And this is where the individual has been presented with a once in a lifetime opportunity to arbitrage the agility you have to open a smartphone, get a wallet, buy some Bitcoin on it like this. Yeah. These bureaucratic mechanisms are going to take years to spin, and you're going to go from 100,000 Bitcoin to 500,000 to 1 million to 5 million to 10 million to 100 million, and literally, at some point, I mean, this is my working thesis. I mean, it is the hardest monetary asset humanity has ever seen.
There's how many total again eventually to be mined? I forget.
21 million units, right? That will ever exist. And that is algorithmically verifiable. Yep. It is 100% auditable.
And when you say Bitcoin, as far as the fundamental aspect, are you saying Bitcoin as it stands by itself, or are you kind of tying that into the crypto blockchain technology more so?
Good question. Yeah. So
I'm trying to define if there's a difference there.
Yeah. So, and again, just for everyone's awareness, creating digital e-cash was something that was attempted by these cypherpunks for years. There's like 30, 40, 50 years of prehistory to all of this. Bitcoin was something that was born out of like a very largely unknown movement.
That's a good point. It's not like it just happened like that. That'd be a very fascinating history to look back.
Oh, there's books on it, and you can trace the evolution of these different cryptographic primitives that emerge over 40 or 50 years that then birth Bitcoin.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I lost the train of thought of how.
But as far as, is there a differentiating thing there you were at between Bitcoin itself, or tying Bitcoin to the blockchain scenario?
Yeah. So Bitcoin fundamentally leverages something that the public knows as blockchain. Actually, Satoshi referred to this as the time chain. He referred to it as time stamping, and I believe that word is actually even used in the white paper. Okay. Which there's a way to get. Yeah, if I have a blog. You can hit it. It's thatbitcoin.blog. Okay. And if you go to the resources section, there's like a little orange rabbit icon at the top. Click that, and it'll take you right to the Bitcoin white paper. It's the link where it is. It's an 8-page white paper, and that's where Satoshi posted that on Halloween 2008, which is actually Reformation Day, by the way.
Interesting.
So that harkens back to Martin Luther and all that.
So 21 million can't create any more of it. So then eventually we're going to get to a point. It'll probably take a while to actually mine all of it, and gets progressively harder every time it halves. So we won't try to go into that necessarily.
Yeah, maybe we have a more technical one.
There's that. XRP has a finite amount that they can't ever get back into it type of scenario. Is there any others outside of?
And I discussed this with friends. It's well, real quick too, because I want to answer your question on the blockchain. So Satoshi, he refers to it as a time chain. Publicly, we kind of refer to it as a blockchain, but really the purpose is how do we create a decentralized ledger?
Yes.
That is a common shared state. And this is actually not a new thing.
Like where anybody can go in and verify this happened is kind of, I guess, an easy definition there.
Yeah, and we have analog, antiquated ways of doing this. The world has run on ledgers for years, right? And you even in accounting, you see the emergence of double entry accounting, right? And people say, Bitcoin, it's triple entry accounting because it's you have the ledger, I have the ledger, and then it is this neutral, decentralized, immutable, open source ledger that's a shared global state everywhere.
And to kind of put that in reference, maybe you would change what I'm trying to say a little bit, but I think in essence, a good easy way to try to think of it is like ultimately to dupe the ledger and change it. You kind of have to change it on, I believe, like over 50% of the ledger time receipts that are scattered throughout the world at the same exact instant type of scenario of sorts.
Yeah, there's something
if you were to try to change an existing one, not make a new one.
Right. Yeah. So if you you've got like the Bitcoin full node, right? And it's got all the history of all the transactions that have happened. It's about a Bitcoin full node is somewhere around 750 gigabytes, 800 gigabytes, something like this.
Okay.
Imagine your MacBook, an old MacBook Pro has a terabyte of storage on it. So a full node is smaller than what you could store it on your MacBook Pro, right?
Okay.
And it has a list of all the transactions that have ever happened. And this is a completely unique kind of setup because now you have this ledger that everyone is accountable to, but no one created. And so it's just kind of emergent. It's just kind of out there, and you can opt in and get on this ledger or not. And you were talking about how would you edit the ledger, right? And the answer is, I mean, realistically, I would say it's statistically pretty much impossible at this point because
that's what I was trying to get to exactly.
You have like this ledger is shored up. This is not some social fiction. This is not some magic internet Ponzi scheme. This is a global ledger that is shored up invisibly. You can't see this, right? There's no Bitcoin mining rigs in here. But in the world, there are very real warehouses filled with humming, as Michael Saylor says, cyber hornets.
Yeah.
Okay. And these things are humming away, defending property. And if you add up all of these humming cyber hornets, it's about 20 gigawatts of total energy throughput.
Okay.
Converting, joules and converting watts of power into this pristine, perfect property that you can buy on a smartphone. And even for me, I'm not an electrical engineer, I'm a civil engineer, so talking in watts is even confusing for me. Just for scale, guys, like, when you're talking watts, right? Like this light bulb, maybe it's running at, 50 watts, maybe 100 watts, something. I don't know what kind of light bulb it is.
Probably LED, so it's probably a lot more like 7, 8.
Yeah, and a human being at rest, right? It's like 100 watts or something. Your brain's like 20 or 30 watts, maybe. You hear different ranges. Well, when you started getting into like, kilowatts, now you're a bigger scale. Then you get into, megawatts, kilowatts. Eventually you're gigawatts, right? And if you're talking about 1 gigawatt, you're talking about a nuclear power plant. 20 gigawatts is Bitcoin now. And it's hockey sticking up.
Yeah.
So you're going to get to 105. You're going to get massive power projection through this network. It's already massive. It's already 20 nuclear power plants of power projection that is shoring up this ledger that you can access with agility on your smartphone. And when I say agility, I just mean like nimbly. You can open your smartphone and get access to it.
Yeah.
And that is just totally unique. And the biggest, like one of the biggest differentiators between this and all the other coins on offer, like, and again, I'm not a maximalist in the sense of nothing else should exist. I'm fine with other things existing. Yeah. My thesis is that everything priced against the hardest money humanity's ever seen will go to zero over time relative to the scarcest thing. So houses are going to go to zero against Bitcoin. Cars go to zero against Bitcoin. Your food, your traveling expenditures, it all goes to zero. And your altcoins, Now, over 10 years, it's like, yeah, you might get outperformance in these different things. But, I think people that are trying to find the latest meme coin, they're missing something. And the XRP thing is a different type of discussion. And I'm not trying to disparage these other. I realize that there is
I see them as two different lanes. Like, for sure, I see Bitcoin and XRP as kind of two different lanes, two different purposes in some respects. Is probably what I would. And there's a deflationary aspect of the XRP, as there's 5,000 burned a day type of scenario of that total that'll never be created any more of. But it's hard because in some ways I think the easier way to think of Bitcoin for a lot of people is like when you talk about the aspect of it going to zero in comparison to how everything inflates is the fact that it's more like gold. Like there's a precious finite amount of it type of scenario.
Correct.
And so I think in some regards gold, we used to use that as like a buy and trade and sell aspect of things when there was a lot less people and a lot more of it type of scenario. It used to be actually part of our coins and our money system.
Right.
And maybe you would have some thoughts there is like, that's why I don't see necessarily Bitcoin from a true transactionary standpoint, maybe being the end all be all type of scenario, which is why I think maybe some aspects of some other kind of crypto maybe takes place for that purpose type of scenario or stable coin related things. But that's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole fascinating topic too, because I tell this to people. So one of the properties of money is currency. Mm-hmm. So if for something to be a money, it's probably going to have a currency dimension to it, probably, right?
That's a fascinating thing to go down as far as the idea of just what is money and currency.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure there. So,
yeah. There's a whole Robert Breedlove, podcast. I'll show that, Robert Breedlove and What is Money. It's great. But yeah, for something to be a money, it's probably going to have a currency dimension to it.
Yeah.
For something to be a currency, for a currency is not always money. Okay. And so, I'm quite ideological about this at this point. Dollars, they aren't money. They're currency. Mm-hmm. And again, right, Bitcoin is money. I think the currency dimension of it will open up over time. You have other layers, the Lightning Network. I just bought a hamburger from Steak and Shake before coming here, like 30 minutes ago, with Bitcoin on the Lightning Network. It didn't cost me any fees. It was great. Very seamless. It was awesome. Steak and Shake, if you go in there, they've actually changed their logo a little bit. So it's got like a digital spin on the Steak and Shake logo. So they're adopting it. And that's a signal as well, right? Like, look at who's adopting this. How are they using it? There's early signs that even like payments on Lightning could actually be cheaper than credit cards. So you're at some point, later this year, I think Square is enabling Bitcoin Lightning on its terminals. So at some point for the merchant, right, if they're paying Amex 3% and some Lightning service provider shows up and says, hey man, like we'll just charge you a few basis points, then all of a sudden you're saving like 2 or 3%. You pass 1% on to the customer, so now they get cheaper lunch. You save money on the fees, and Amex, like they better get their stuff together because they're about to get their lunch eaten.
That's true. That's a whole other conversation. How much the credit cards have been kind of like just making hand over fist money type of scenario in some ways forever. More so than maybe was necessary. I mean, there's a reason there's a whole credit card points game out there, and they offered so much back incentives and credit card points and this, that, or the other. And
just
those
to,
of us that try to take advantage.
Point come home for everybody to see how debasement works. Like, have you ever seen flight miles? Like, ride on Delta sometime and just be like, all right, how far is the trip? Okay, it's 1,000 miles. We're going to the Midwest from CVG Airport. It's 1,000 miles. How much did I pay on flight points to get this trip? And it's like 35,000 points, 35,000 flight miles to buy 1,000 miles. That's like 1,000 to 1.
So I just play the bonus game. Usually like cycling cards and stuff like that. But most people are not willing to go through with that, or maybe disciplined enough to kind of like not just kind of let credit build from a debt scenario. So, but yeah, so. As we transition, like I said, I think we're more or less now in this kind of sunrise aspect. We're kind of, the sunrise. The dawn aspect is kind of, I feel like behind us in some respects, as like light was starting to illuminate on what this was, and more people grew with it. And now that I feel like it's starting to really shine and going to really start shining in this these next 5 years and stuff like that. So, I mean, where's your thoughts on that aspect as far as maybe by just from a first step scenario where we're headed by 2030 in that respect, and I'll probably give mine on XRP in that sense.
Yeah. So yeah, Bitcoin. I mean, you look at the adoption rates. You can track, the wallets that are generated. You can just track anecdotally, like reading in the news. Like I said, Square enabling Lightning payments later in the year. That's all bullish to see something like that. But the highest utility in Bitcoin, it's not really. I didn't buy Bitcoin, so 8 years ago, so I could buy a burger and steak and shit. I bought it because I wanted to protect my purchasing power.
Yeah.
And it's done an amazing, amazing job at that. And I think it's a little tricky for people to appreciate that because they see the proliferation of all the cryptoverse as a whole.
Sure.
And it's easy to just lump, Bitcoin, it's the same as Shiba Inu and Dogecoin and XRP and ETH and Solana, and they're all just, it's very blurry and cloudy for people. And so I hope I can offer a perspective that helps to color in the lines and make it more clear what makes Bitcoin distinct. Mm-hmm. We can talk about the XRP thing. We can talk about some of these other ones. And I won't pretend I'm not a cryptographer. Right. I'm a business guy with an engineering background. I'm, kind of more hard sciences with, physical infrastructure. But that's part of why Bitcoin makes sense to me as well. But
and to tie it into what I was saying earlier, as far as hopefully the government now within hopefully this year or by next year kind of puts the boundaries and rules of operations in place, especially from more of a financial institutions place, only shores up more of what you're obviously talking about in the sense of like, sure, I could have Bitcoin or some of the crypto on my my balance, not my balance sheet, but here's my net worth stuff. I've got to send it to the bank to show here's my my credit, what I owe creditors versus here are my assets, your personal financial statement. Whereas usually the banks will see that and be like, they kind of just immediately dismiss it, even if it's on there right now. They have a spot for it, but it's like no one's really giving you any credit for it at this point. So hopefully in that sense, that is going to be a positive in some scenarios when now that will be able to be more credited towards us as an asset of sorts. Whereas right now we know it's headed there, but we can't really use it in that way quite yet.
Yeah, and I experience this stuff very practically because I'm going down with the ship. I'm very committed to this Bitcoin thing working out. Very much. Like I want to see the world running on a hard money. That's why. And you have to do it digitally. We can't use shiny gold rocks to do this. We need bearer commodity asset that you can self custody. Yeah. You can maintain your keys. You can put it in a multi-sig. You
sure can't trust the government creating something on their own and running it type of scenario, right? Yeah, because that's the other part of it.
The government's a corporation in the limit. As
you would rather it be this way than the government saying we're going to create a digital U.S. dollar type of scenario.
No. You have to have a neutral global, ledger to run everything off of, and also. Look at Switzerland. Look at the Qataris. Why are they the envy of the world in some ways? I mean, they're smaller, right? But they're like they're peaceful. It's beautiful. I mean, just why? It's because they set themselves up as mediators. They position themselves as neutral, and Bitcoin is bringing that kind of a property to the entire world. And the biggest thing is it puts everybody on the same sheet of music. Like we're all playing, I play soccer, you play basketball, you do insurance and have your business.
Big
I'm
musician,
an engineer
so
for Kentucky.
Say a sheet of music. That's probably more hits home than the basketball side of things.
Yeah, like imagine we're all playing different instruments, but we're coordinated, right? Like, someone's playing the trombone and the piano and the violin, but it makes a symphony. Well, this is about what you're to see. Like Bitcoin is a global symphony of economic activity. It is aligning disinterested counterparties, and it's putting everybody on the same project. And we're building a global superstructure right now.
Same opportunity as everybody else.
Yeah, and you talked about adoption. I wanted to hit that too, because you brought up like the collateralization aspect and like building a robust credit and collateralization dimension to Bitcoin. This will be done by the institutions. And so Bitcoin is not it's not the enemy of the it's not the enemy of the dollar. It's not the enemy of Jamie Dimon and, Chase. It's not the enemy of these things. It is a neutral tool, and it is like a game. It is like we've all been playing these other games and someone just invented a new one, and we all bring our skill sets. And, for me, like soccer was invented, I don't remember the exact year, but it was called football, right? Like they brought all their previous abilities, and then you've got this new game. It's laid down. It's understood. It's neutral. It is codified. No one's changing the rules every time you show up. and everyone's going to come in. We're going to play the new game. We're going to compete on it. And that is exactly what's happening with Bitcoin. And, you know, this thing's been going on now. I mean, this is we're 16 years into this. It's not going away. It's only getting bigger. And you can ignore a thing. You cannot ignore the consequences of ignoring a thing. And Bitcoin is such a thing that, you know, I think 30 years from now, you're going to look back and be like, man, I really wish I didn't ignore that. And you know, as we go into the 2030s, again, I think the Ray Kurzweil singularity thesis is pretty good. It's a fascinating book. It's kind of disturbing in some ways. And also some of these tech futurists, none of them anticipated Bitcoin.
Oh, no.
And even them, like you listen to Ray Kurzweil
they anticipated a lot, which is crazy. Like even AI and everything like that, anticipating a lot of this stuff. But you're right, they didn't anticipate.
They didn't, and they're like, oh, man, humanity needs a hopeful story. Like, you know who Peter Diamandis is at all? Like he's another one of these futurist kind of guys. He was in school with Michael Saylor back in the day. They were friends. And I listen to a lot of his content too, because he's pretty big on like the longevity biotech space, and he's raising awareness there. And he points out, man, like with the AI topic, he's like, Hollywood has really done us a disservice because they paint AI as this nefarious overlord, and this is a hopeless endeavor, and it's always going to end up in total authoritarian chaos, right? Dystopian future. And I think, you know, it's good that we confront those outcomes through our creative media, but what we really need too is like, what is the hope? Like, where's the path forward that's beautiful?
Yeah.
And this is where I actually think I can add a lot of value to people is like, you know, I've always been fascinated with technology. It's kind of a dual interest. Like I love soccer, but I really love like futuristic thinking and like, how do we create a future that I would love for my kids to grow up in? And like, what's the super kind of sci-fi, but also like rooted in principles and like long-standing values and virtues that would make our grandparents proud.
Yeah.
Like I don't want my great grandfather who bought that mall property, you know, 100 years ago out in Washington State to like, if he can see, you know, my actions, I don't want him to be thinking, man, like I took all these really conservative, great steps to like create a good path for my family. And then my great grandkid, like just ended up squandering it and living this like lucid, you know, crazy life. Like I want to make my own contribution. And for me, Bitcoin is this thing. And, you know, maybe we could do another episode, but there's something that Bitcoin fundamentally solved that I want to make everyone aware of. And this is not something that XRP or ETH or these other projects solved. There's a long-standing problem in computer science called the Byzantine generals problem.
Okay.
And what that problem is you can see like a graphic, right? You have like 7, 8 kings around a castle. And let's just pretend it's a perimeter, right? And you've got the castle in the middle. And they want to sack the castle. Okay. They want to all attack and sack the castle. Well, the only way they can do it is if they all attack together.
Okay.
And if anyone defects, then they lose. So it's almost like the prisoner's dilemma in a way. Kind of.
Yeah.
It actually is. So, you know, if they don't all coordinate their attacks together, they can't sack the castle, and they're going to lose, and they're all going to lose. And the one guy who ran off free, I mean, he's also going to lose because the castle's going to, you know, the military's going to come for him too. So they've got to coordinate their action, right? It's the Byzantine generals problem. How do they coordinate so that they can all attack at the same time, even though they don't trust each other? Because they're allies, but this is like a temporary arrangement. I mean, after this, you know, there's going to be new political strife. You know, this is like the story of humanity right here. The Byzantine generals problem is our reality, okay? It is life on planet Earth. There are 8 billion Byzantine generals on this planet, and Earth is the metaphorical castle. How are we going to subdue the Earth? This is Genesis 1. Like, I mean, it is our divine mandate to do this, but how are we going to do this when we're all at odds with each other?
Sure.
And so this is a software problem, but I kind of like to extend it philosophically. Well, in 2008, when Satoshi came up with this concept of Bitcoin and posted it, in 2009 is when it started. January 3rd, 2009 is when the Genesis block, you know, comes out. And it's got, you know, Chancellor on the brink of bailout for banks. It's like a little subscript it's from a newspaper. He put that in the first block. So it's hearkening to the financial crisis that had happened 3 months before.
Okay.
Well, when he posted that, it was literally like Luke Skywalker blowing up the Death Star, okay? It's like you have this guy from no one expected, no one knew who he was, and he gets in, he's this unknown little Jedi, maestro, cyberpunk, okay? and he approaches like the Death Star.
Yeah.
Okay, like the Fiat cabal. I mean, truly
Found the one penetrating point.
Yeah, like yeah. Like who would have ever expected some guy could like harness this fundamental property of the universe, which is that entropy is essentially free. So, right, you've heard this, right? Everything trends toward disorder. If it's not a closed system, if it's a closed system, right, without an influx of energy, it will just trend toward disorder, right? If we have a glass cage with a glass box with gas in it, and we have a partition in the middle, and we pull up the partition, the gas molecules are going to go everywhere, and you're never going to get them back in order randomly without physically doing something to change the system. So things trend toward disorder. Well, Satoshi hijacked this property. So your private keys, right? When you have a hardware wallet and you have 12 or 24 words, those are human legible readouts of an underlying massive random number. And it's so rare, it's more rare than a random atom in the universe.
Is it more rare than the code to mine Bitcoin as well?
Yeah, the mining system,
or is that,
I'm definitely no mining expert here. There's more qualified people to talk about this, but they're looking for, I think, what's called a target value.
Oh, that's right.
And so they're hashing, and actually this is also a misnomer I want to clear up while I'm here. The mainstream media, when they interview people on Bitcoin mining and all this, they say, oh yeah, like you got all these crazy computers everywhere and they're solving puzzles. It's all right, no, that's not right. They're not solving puzzles. Okay, that's completely confusing everybody. It's because
not a good analogy.
Yeah, because the average person hears that and they're thinking,
analogy,
they're like, okay, so you got these computers and they're like trying to like shake a Rubik's cube and like they're trying to solve it, or they're trying to like they're doing all this fancy math that calculus 4 and they're solving cryptographic puzzles. No, that is not what's happening. What's happening is there is a property of prime numbers. When you have primes, they're easy to multiply and they're hard to factor. So if you have I think 3 and 7, right? Prime numbers, multiply them, 21. Oh, okay, very easy. Give the number 21. What are the primes? To think a minute, 3 and 7. If you go bigger, right, and you multiply two massive prime numbers together, and then you try to factor them back, it's basically, it's impossible. There is no algorithm to do this. Quantum computers, maybe we'll be able to do it. That's a whole other topic.
Whole other topic, that's for sure.
But effectively,
that's the one I'm probably more worried about in some respects. Of some of that, that's again another conversation.
But even then, computing. There's lattice. There's other forms of cryptography. The short of it is, you really think that Apple and Microsoft and IBM, all these massive tech companies are going to let quantum ruin their own tech monopolies? No. There's also quantum cryptography, which is also another game, and there's something called lattice cryptography. There's QBTC. You can look that up online if you have concerns about the quantum threat. It's not a nothing burger. It's a real threat, but I think Satoshi, blowing up the Death Star was the biggest thing, and then from there, it's kind of let's just make.
So they're not really trying to solve a puzzle. They're more or less trying to get to kind of randomly guess the number. These things to solve whatever it is for the next Bitcoin to be mined type of scenario. So an easier way of brute forcing just massive amounts of numbers to find the right one.
And
that was the key. I guess it'd be almost like the key.
Kind of. They're looking for a target value, so there's actually a number. With a private key, it's one number, right? Like when you have a hardware wallet and you have your seed phrase, it is one big number, and it's a defined thing, right? And then that can create a bunch. It's like a tree, right? You have a seed, and then boom, you have all these public addresses you can create from the underlying key. With mining, my understanding is they're hunting for a solution that's within a target value, and so there's a range of possible solutions that would work. But yes, suffice it to say, it's kind of like the unlock, and once a random computer brute force guesses a correct solution, then it's immediately verifiable because you can plug the solution in, right? You factored the primes. Oh, great! It's not exactly that here, but it's you can quickly verify they solved it. Then I tell you I solved it, and you're like, oh yeah, I plugged the numbers in, sure enough, and then everyone else checks it. Oh, good to go. Give him the Bitcoin. So I then write in my Bitcoin block of transactions that I post, I'm going to credit myself the block reward. I get the Bitcoin for that block, and then the competition starts again. And this is going on literally right now as we record, and it's going on as you, the viewer, watch this later. So, they're not solving puzzles. They're brute forcing a problem that is so mathematically impossible. Like it's unsolvable even by AI, by the way. Like Bitcoin, this is the other beautiful thing, man. Like Bitcoin, it gives us like protection against AI overlords, right? There is no like.
That's a good point too. I've never thought about the cross there between as far as the correlation or decorrelation aspect of that in that sense too.
Yeah, this is like, and I don't understand how people just don't believe in God, because I'm like the world is so like when you really like go deep and study how things work, you're like, dude,
how's any
like
of this
how
random?
in the world like you would there has to be like a sovereign designer that is so remarkable to me. But yeah, like God is sovereign enough to allow. He knew that AI is not a surprise to God, and He created this other property of the universe. It's like, oh, you can take advantage of entropy and like a computer not being able to guess this. Oh, it's just it's a number. It's like literally a Bitcoin private key. It's 256 bits of entropy. And people are like, wow, but what does all this mean? You must be
private key being their password type of scenario of sorts.
But and it's actually not. It is complicated, but it's not so complicated. 256 bits, right? What is a bit? A bit is 0 or 1. It's a coin flip. Heads, tails. 256 bits of entropy is like you flipping a coin 256 times. Okay, you get this massive number, and then you convert it into human readable text. So like one word in a private key, it represents, I don't know, 8 or 16, it's 12 bits or something. I can't remember exactly.
And the possible combinations, I guess, would be the fact form of what, 256 times 254 times 253 times, if I'm remembering my math correctly there, as far as how many possible combinations.
Oh, yes.
I forget the form, you know what I'm saying? And so
like
that's why,
I
think that's a better way of thinking about it. Like there's 256, but like, you multiply that by and remove one number each time.
2 by 2 by 2 by 2.
And that's where we're getting into ridiculous amounts of numbers type of scenario.
To the point where I think you estimate the atoms in the universe and it's like, I don't know, 10 to the 80 or something. I don't know. There's different figures out there, but huge number. But Bitcoin is like your private key is 2 to the 256. I mean, that's freaking massive. I mean, it's a huge number. It's more rare than it's like you plucking a random atom out of the whole universe and you know it, and it didn't cost you anything. To do that. And this is what Satoshi, like, and again, like, he didn't invent the whole thing. Like, Adam Back, you know, I haven't personally met him, but I mean, he's alive and well, and smart guy. He invented proof of work, and he originally designed that to combat email spam. Email spam. Because he makes it costly. He introduces thermodynamics into cyberspace. So like if you get spam email, spam call, why can people just do that ad hoc as much as they want? Because it doesn't really cost them anything. And you know, people, you can't escape economics. And so if the economics are spam everybody because you're going to catch a fish every once in a while, scam someone out of their money, then
So as far as, I think to kind of maybe wrap it up because I don't want to go. We're going to have to have multiples for sure. But like again, we kind of I think painted where we've been, where we're kind of dawning into this new era and age as we have talked about some of the stuff within. So you know, painting the picture of the next 5 years. I mean, I probably have some of my thoughts in some aspects with certain things, and you probably have more so in Bitcoin. I'm sure that I think all can potentially work together. So like, where are you kind of thinking maybe just in the next 5 years as we kind of really change and. You know, we're in this time period with AI, robotics, crypto. That I mean, it's crazy. Like the amount of opportunity for anyone out there is just unbelievable, more so than ever in any point in human history.
It is.
So so regarding the Bitcoin part of it, where do you think that kind of starts moving here in the next 5 years? Not necessarily projecting price necessarily.
Yeah, which I don't really. I appreciate that because I don't. I've kind of strayed away. I don't. I've never really been a price predicting person because I don't think anyone, especially in this kind of a world, 5 years out, it's like I don't think anybody has alpha on that. Like as Saylor says, all your models are destroyed.
Right.
Why does he say that? Because you never know the day that the next Michael Saylor is going to wake up on the other side of the bed and be like, oh, why don't I have no Bitcoin exposure? And goes and buys 30,000 Bitcoin. There is no model that predicts these idiosyncratic events, right? The black swans. I mean, there's so many things that can happen in the world that change things. And also, guys, like this could go the other way, all right? Like here's like the other path that this could take, because there's a saying in Bitcoin, like in ways, Bitcoin takes the most painful path. And sometimes that means it goes way up when you didn't have the exposure you wanted. And other times it completely plummets when you got over levered. And, it's a painful roller coaster.
We have idiots like mortgaging homes to buy Bitcoin and stuff like that. You're like, that's not going to be what this is built on as far as the foundation. It's too volatile. But as it slowly builds. And so I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, like we've talked about with government aspect and stuff like that, where you start getting into ETF, back secure, Bitcoin and ETF type of scenarios, things where it starts to merge in with traditional finance aspects is I think where we're headed here over this next several years in this step, and which kind of solidifies the base and the foundation even more so.
The ETFs came online January of 2024, so we're about a year and a half, 18 months into the ETF saga. That fundamentally changed the adoption path, the modeling. It changed a lot of things. I mean,
which is not I would argue it's probably a true ETF. Like in some ways, like you're kind of more or less a company who has kind of built into it. So it's not like the ETF itself is owning Bitcoin. It's more like companies that have owned Bitcoin of sorts, because that's why we haven't had that full change in the financial aspect. Like a financial advisor can't go buy it for you type of scenario. So there's still a little distinction there is what I'm trying to get at, where as some of this starts changing, which we hope it will with the guidelines with the government type of scenario, where that does change, where financial advisors and things of that nature are it's treated more like an ability like gold or others like that, where they can transact it for people. So that's what I'm kind of making a little. We're not all the way there yet. Even when we say ETF,
you may know more about that area than me in terms of just the fine print of how the ETFs work. I mean, my understanding is it's 1-for-1. Like if you buy Fidelity Bitcoin Trust, right, FBTC, it's 1-for-1. Right, if you buy IBIT, right, BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF, it's 1-for-1. They're not. I mean, you're going to pay a small amount in a management fee, but it's it's an institutional grade way to get Bitcoin exposure. And yes, it's a custodial product. So there's all these trade-offs, but it's like, well, I mean, but when you self-custody, there's risk with that too, right? Like, I mean, you're fully responsible, and not everyone. I mean, I recommend people kind of learn how to use Bitcoin in all sorts of different ways. Like, because email, right? Like you use email in lots of different ways. You use tools. Most all tools have different ways that you'll implement them. And, you should learn how to be savvy with doing your own self-custody Bitcoin. Try cold wallet, try a hot wallet, try multi-signature. And you scale into this. But to start, if you're listening to this, and you're like, man, this guy sounds like he's just like hot off the loony bin. Yeah, you're not wrong. Like, I'm like a little autistic or whatever. But like, dude, I mean, you should start somewhere. And I think if you're going to start anywhere, like there's a great documentary. It's called God Bless Bitcoin. It's on YouTube. It's free. It'll take you like an hour and a half. And it'll give you more of what I'm sharing, but it'll give you graphics. Right. It'll give you more history, more context.
The ambiguity, the cloud of it, like that's the part, if anybody hasn't, just needs to start really diving into what is it, like we've been talking about today. And that's where I wanted to kind of keep it more so at high level today, to kind of really say, hey, like, again, we're talking about the sunrise. It's not too late to start really learning about it, really diving into educating yourself on it.
Yeah.
And especially as AI even changes things, and is probably going to accentuate the devaluation of the U.S. dollar in many ways, while creating opportunity in a different place. If people are not aware of that in transitioning skill sets or mindset when it comes to financial things, et cetera, you're going to get left behind a bit there. And so I think that's what I'm kind of really pointing to.
I should add too, like, if you hear this and you're like, that's kind of interesting, I didn't really understand it, but it was interesting, he seems passionate, and they're talking about a sunrise. Okay, like what?
Yeah.
But I don't know if I don't really want to buy Bitcoin.
Yeah.
What I would tell that person is like, you actually already have Bitcoin exposure probably. So if you have like a Roth IRA and you have index exposure to the S&P 500, you have exposure to MicroStrategy stock.
Yep.
MicroStrategy has over 500,000 Bitcoin, right? BlackRock, you brought up the ETFs. Yeah. BlackRock has over 750,000 Bitcoin. I mean, these institutions are adopting this at scale. If you have exposure to like mainstream run-of-the-mill index funds, like you've already got exposure to this, I would encourage the United States, if any political leaders happen to be listening to this, even local. Now, I try, like I in my work, I get chances to talk with leaders about this topic. I'm trying my hardest to spin them up and like help them not be scared and like lead on this topic.
Like, aren't you in civil engineering?
Because like, dude, I'm like, I have an M.B.A. I'm like, I'm like autistically studying markets for like 10 years, and I've read a ton of these books, and I had these traumatizing experiences as a kid with the traditional like TradFi, and like I'm like, you know, I'm not saying I know everything there is to know about this. It's just I'm tired of people being apathetic and not paying attention and just being blasé and, you know, woe is me, the future is hopeless. And it's like, guys, like there is so much hope here if we can learn about this new way to engage and approach reality, engage with each other, because like you know, Bitcoin is it's a method of speech. Like I'm respecting you more actually by using Bitcoin versus dollars. That's a whole other philosophical.
I could get behind that one. I understand what you're trying to say there.
Yeah, I mean it's peaceful. That's one of the biggest things too. Like, you know, peace on earth, goodwill to men. Like I'm really flabbergasted that it's taking the church so long to become knowledgeable about this. We're supposed to be the ones out here talking about like goodwill to men and peace and blessing and hope and prosperity without the prosperity gospel, but like actual real hope for people eternally, but also, you know, like we can do a lot it's a broken world, but we can actually do a lot of good things here too. And Bitcoin is such a hope in the world. It's such a light, and I want to do all I can to help educate people on that. And I'd be happy to chat with you any more if people are interested.
So what was the blog again that you mentioned as far as so
it's a blog, and I kind of wrote a lot of that a couple of years ago. I was in a certain state of mind, so it's very philosophical, kind of, and it's called thatbitcoin.blog. Okay. You can hit it that way. I'm on Twitter at BTCWW3. At
BTCWW3, World War 3.
Yeah. So that's maybe another topic.
Nice.
I think there's a whole lot of dimensions to this that people are missing, and I just want to help bring people along, because
we'll definitely have you back. Probably I'm sure, because it's like I said, no one's missed the boat yet, and there's so much endless possibilities right now as far as what's out there. But just starting to educate yourselves, and I can see you're passionate on that, and I have an equal passion when it comes to a lot of AI aspect and things of that sort as well that we talk about. So appreciate your time, and we will connect with everybody in another episode here in a couple of weeks of the Keys to the Commonwealth podcast. Appreciate it. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you, Landry. Glad to be here.